So the Royal Rumble pay-per-view main event has been changed, or I shouldn't say the main event. The WWE title match has been changed, and it now includes a triple threat, and a lot of people aren't that happy. My name is Tubby Emu, and we're going to talk about that in this video because I've seen a lot of social media comments, a lot of people getting angry, upset, constantly telling me, Tubby, he is the Money in the Bank winner. Why does he need to be in the championship match? And a lot of people are pretty upset about it. And I've kind of gone back and forth, and honestly, I'm okay with it. I think Seth Rollins and Edge said this, and I've talked about this twice now before, but Edge said this where he's like, you know, you got the ball, kid, after the whole John Cena thing, even though I thought the segment was, and I thought it could have been a better way to bring back the Authority. Seth Rollins is the guy that forced John Cena to do something that he said he would never do. He would never go up against his morals, and he did. He gave out, and he let the Authority come back. So I think it's only right for Seth Rollins to get, not necessarily added, but rewarded for what he did. I mean, because if you think about it, the severity of that, it shouldn't be downplayed. They should bring it up, and especially with someone like, John, you wouldn't even tap out when you got beat down via The Miz. You got beat down, John, so bad, and you never gave up. But, John, when somebody's life was on the line, you gave in. And you couldn't be Super Cena, John. You couldn't be that guy to save the day. Just like you couldn't be the guy to save the day at Survivor Series and you had to rely on Dolph Ziggler. Something like that. I still think it kind of pushes the envelope to be used later, possibly. I think with Seth Rollins, I think you have Dean Ambrose and Bray Wyatt that kind of headlined the show. They went out there. They had a big match. They did their thing. And, you know, they've been kind of in the main event as of late, and other guys are kind of getting the chance, and Seth Rollins definitely deserves to be there. And they're just setting up all these guys to keep being in the main event, whether it's for the title or not. I mean, and I think I talked about this in the other video yesterday, but I think Seth Rollins having the briefcase, if he was to ever have the briefcase before he became champion, I think that still is one of the coolest things that could possibly happen because the unpredictability of having a title, say he wins the title, and say at Fastlane he's got to face somebody and he loses, and then he just cashes in his Money in the Bank. Or he loses at Fastlane, Brock Lesnar gets the title back, and he decides not to cash in because of a mutual understanding from the boss. Maybe something like that. I mean, there's so many ways they could go that I was okay with it. I think there is a lot of possibilities. I think Seth Rollins definitely has to keep getting his name out there like he is. I think, you know, him working with J&J Security, being especially with Triple H, it really builds up the character and makes it interesting for me. The one thing that I may have somewhat of an issue with, though, is the fact that what are they going to do? I mean, the thing that other people have issue with, is the build-up for the last 3 weeks about the promotional material about, you know, match number 3. This is the big one. This is, you know, the UFC 3, and I thought that's why they were pushing it. Because it makes sense. Like, WWE always talks about how UFC is in competition, but then they started advertising Lesnar Cena 3, or, you know, same thing with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and, you know, twice in a lifetime, and it made sense to me to build up that as a multiple-time feud. The one thing that I kind of laughed about, though, was in the UK, the WWE magazine, they had John Cena versus Brock Lesnar at 2-2, and it's like about the third time they fought. And I think with Seth Rollins being added in the match, it would allow for one of them, and I'm just going to restart it because I don't want to lose this match. It allows for them to possibly protect one of them, and I know what somebody's going to say, oh, this possibly could set up Brock Cena again somewhere way down the line. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe, who knows? Like I said, I don't know where the plans are going necessarily, whether or not Cena's going to get the title Rollins. I still think Brock Lesnar walks out the champion. And one of the reports that we read was, you know, I think that the reason they added him into the match, and for 2 to 3 weeks it's been talked about, is that the title match isn't really the headline of the pay-per-view, the Royal Rumble is. And I would wholeheartedly agree. I think the big selling point of the Royal Rumble is the Royal Rumble, and the WWE Championship match is just a small portion of that. So I was perfectly fine with the fact that they did add him in. It can save both men, and I think it brings an interesting dynamic because it's a story they've kind of been building towards. It really has. I mean, you have Seth Rollins, who is out there working and doing his thing with J&J Security, and it looks like he kind of made an agreement with Paul Heyman. Seeing the tension between that, like, what if Seth Rollins takes advantage and then wins? What happens if Seth Rollins decides to let one of them win, and then he just cashes in? Like, I think the possibilities are endless, and it'll provide for a little bit of an unpredictable pay-per-view. And to be honest with you, it gets Rollins' name in there. It's like WWE is slowly starting to work this in. You got like Sting, Triple H coming back. You had Dolph Ziggler got over, but they used the legend Sting to make the storyline feel real and like holy shit moment. Well, here we have Brock Cena 3, which most people don't really care about, but then you have a new up-and-coming guy, Seth Rollins, who is now in that main event, just like Bray Dolph when they main evented the paper, not Bray Dolph. Bray Dean or Seth Dean at Hell in a Cell. They're continuing on a climb, and it seems like every month somebody different kind of gets that build. So instead of looking at it as he got added in, and what does he do to deserve it, or all this is Seth's second pay-per-view now since Brock has been champion that he's in the main event, dude. Like, what does that say about how they're building new superstars? That these guys that they called up, the Shield, the NXT guys, they're holding their own. I mean, they're doing a good job, and they're on TV. And honestly, I'm pretty excited about it. I think that they can go a lot of different directions with this. I think the tension between Heyman, the Authority, and Seth Rollins can definitely be explored more. And it's something I am looking forward to. And I think the referee got taken out. As the more it plays out and the more you start to see this or all the dominoes fall into place, you'll kind of understand it. Now, with that being said, WWE Creative doesn't normally think like this. So for us sitting here going, oh, it makes sense that they're doing this because of this or because of that, WWE doesn't necessarily have that, or they don't necessarily think that far ahead, and they're always just thinking about that one pay-per-view. So if that's the case, yeah, it sucks. And I'm sorry, but I have hope that WWE knows what they're doing, especially like with what's going on with the superstars revolting up against, and I hope they're not rehashing that storyline because I think that would suck, where they walk out against the Authority. Somebody had talked about that, like, oh, we're not going to wrestle unless you bring back those three men. I think Seth Rollins has got the ball now, and to keep him in the main event, like I talked about in my Daniel Bryan not getting the main event on WrestleMania, is Daniel had a shot last year. Cena's had a shot for the last 10 years. When has Seth Rollins ever had a Royal Rumble main event? When has Dean Ambrose, those guys had those big name matches, and those guys are finally starting to get those. Yeah, every once in a while we get Cena Brock or something like that, but then when that doesn't happen, we're getting these other guys that are getting built up. So I think Seth Rollins doing his thing, going on out there, and getting added to the match is fine. I'm perfectly fine with it, and I can't wait to see where they actually go and how they build it. I think that him being in the match could kind of protect Brock, it could kind of protect Cena, and kind of give an interesting pay-per-view finish, and hopefully we see something cool, because I think Seth will provide that a little bit more high-flying stuff to versus Brock, Cena, or more beat each other up, slow down pace, that kind of thing. We'll definitely see a little bit of a different side, and I think it'll be very interesting to watch. At least in my opinion, I think it'll be a pretty good match to watch. And to be honest with you, it's not the same old, same old. We always get Randy versus Cena, and a lot of people always would get mad at that, like, oh, it's the same old thing. It's the same old thing constantly. It's the same old thing. Well, now we got something new. So I think instead of getting upset about that, you just have to take into consideration Seth is now in the main event of Royal Rumble. A guy that came up from NXT is in the main event with Brock Lesnar and John Cena. Two guys that have been in this business a long time are now sharing the spotlight with a guy like Seth Rollins. And I think that's pretty cool. So those are my thoughts. That's what I think about Seth Rollins getting added to the Royal Rumble match, for those of you that were wondering my opinion. And as you can see, Cena celebrating. He buried him. Was going to hit him with that curb stop, but couldn't do it. That'll pretty much wrap it up, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Where do you stand on Seth Rollins? where do you stand on Brock Lesnar, John Cena in the main event of the Royal Rumble? I still think the Royal Rumble is the feature of the match, so these guys are just kind of the offset. So I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters too much that he got added. I think it'll just add a little bit of excitement. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you all later.